Welcome to the Connor Cherland podcast, where I, Connor Cherland, meet up with a musician, see what makes them tick, what inspires their songs, what kind of life experiences they are bringing into their art. And on today's episode, we have Mackenzie Howe from Pet Dress. If you're going to type in to Google pet dress, just go ahead and add music, as sometimes the results will be clothing for pets, and that's not what we're looking for. We are looking for the new album Fear of Breakdown by Pet Dress Music. So she's going to play one of those songs from the album on the podcast, as well as a song from a previous project she was on, The Wild Reeds. I hope you really enjoy, and I think this person has tons of insight, so listen up. Awesome. So you already told me a little bit about Dolly. Also, I'm super interested in K through 12 education at the Waldorf School. Can you tell me what life as a Waldorf kid is like?
Yeah. Well, first, how do you know about Waldorf education?
So my wife, we've been married 4.5 years, and she taught preschool for 6.5 years, and she modeled a lot of her approaches off of the Waldorf thought process. So
Yeah.
she has a lot of respect for it, which means I have a lot of respect for it. So that's where that comes from.
Got it.
But I really know like nothing, so you can tell me whatever, and I will believe you.
This is one of my favorite things to talk about, and no one ever cares. So I'm stoked that you're asking.
Yeah, that's because people are stupid.
Yeah. So basically, Rudolf Steiner, who was a theosophist or was into theosophy and philosophy and was an engineer, is Austrian. I guess he's even like a scientist. He came up with Waldorf education in sort of his like spiritual life quest. And his whole thing was that science and spirituality are not separate, and that you cannot separate the physical from the invisible. So if somebody has cancer, we know what's wrong with their body physically, but what's the spiritual ailment? Or, I mean, you can apply it to like anything.
Yeah.
So he came up with, like, his whole theory is called anthroposophy. And within anthroposophy, there's biodynamic gardening, and there's homeopathic medicine, and there's Waldorf education. There's sort of all these aspects of life that anthroposophy touches. But I feel like Waldorf education is probably the most thorough, because he really thought out how to approach raising a child while making sure you're attending to their physical and spiritual well-being from pre-K through 12th grade. So, like, everything is so intentional and thought out, down to, like, the colors of the classroom at what age you are and what your body needs in that moment. Maybe 4th grade classroom is lavender because it's calming, and 9-year-olds are going through a crazy time, or you don't get Egyptian history in this specific grade, you get it in this one, because that's where you're at in terms of your development, is like you can start to understand the things that Egyptian history has to offer. So it's really, really based on art and music, and that's where some people get frustrated with it, because they say it's not academic enough, because we don't have standardized testing. But I would argue that, in the sense that yes, there's a heavy emphasis on the arts, and if your kid wants to be a pro football player, probably don't send them to a Waldorf school. But it was like the kids who were totally brilliant at math and, stuff like that, like, were able to excel if they were excelling. And, like, we all got into colleges, and some people got into amazing colleges, and so it's doable.
So I've only heard of Waldorf like within the pre-K sense, but like when you like being in it as a senior in high school, like do you go to other people's proms? Like, is it a big enough group that you can have a prom, or like have a sports team, or like what does high school life look like at that point?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because I think a lot of Waldorf schools, it is really small, to the point where they kind of have to put all the classes together, or there's like 5 9th graders and 6 10th graders. But the one I went to, called Highland Hall, it's in the San Fernando Valley in LA, we had about 30 kids per grade. So our prom happened every year, and you went all 4 years of high school. And Waldorf High School is like seriously a trip. It's honestly really cool. You get to this age in junior high where you just want to be a normal kid. You want like, you know, piercings, and you want to be able to watch TV a lot and like go hang out with friends. And in high school, your other friends are going to football games every night, and you know, you're coming home with like geometric drawing homework, and you're very aware that you're different. And there's
Yeah.
this point between, I feel like, 7th and 9th grade where kids just want to leave. They want to be normal. They
Yeah.
want to go to the mall all the time and hang out with other kids. And we did all those things. Like, it wasn't a cult,
Yeah.
but a lot of those kids came back because they were like, what was I thinking? Like, cool. So the school I went to had a football team and a swim team, but like, if I'm not going to play football, or like, what was I doing? So there was a lot of return kids that left and then ended up coming back.
Okay. I mean, nothing makes you sound more in a cult, like having to say, it's
Going
not
to
a
the
cult.
mall.
I swear we're not a cult. My wife has plenty of thoughts about the Waldorf School and about how most teachers don't get an education on the like brain development of the people that they teach, and there's certain things you can't physically expect something of someone prior to their brain developing to a certain point. It seems like Waldorf and other places are kind of catching on to that, which is very exciting. What do you feel like I mean, obviously, like, it's a good institution. You enjoyed being a part of a good institution, but like, what do you think that you got there, like, as it relates to your musical career?
Oh, man. I had to start playing instruments at a young age. I was in orchestra all through junior high and high school. So I'm really grateful that I was like constantly around music, even if it wasn't always music that I felt like playing, if I wasn't into classical at the time. I'm really glad I have that experience of playing with a bunch of other people and playing jazz and big band and stuff like that. But I think part of why I didn't play music like as a career choice until my 20s is because I was so intimidated by all the kids I'd grown up with. So many kids I'd grown up with went on to become producers or be in bands. And it almost just felt like, why try? I'm like surrounded by savants. And I really was. I mean, like, it's insane. Juilliard, you know, like I was surrounded by incredible musicians all the time. And it wasn't until I went to college and I made a whole new friend group and I realized, oh shit, not everybody is amazing at music because that's all I grew up with, that I started to be like, I can pick up this guitar and play it and I'm not going to feel judged or weird, you know?
Yeah.
So then I started to like find my own voice and think, well, maybe I can write songs. Well, maybe it's okay if I only know how to play the guitar in a really mediocre way.
Yeah.
But I feel like Waldorf education gave me an into music and like a standard, and also it like gave me this ability to like, I can hear a song and figure it out on the guitar, or I can hear it and listen to it and guess what the chords are in a specific key that like, I feel like that just came from like years of being around music.
Yeah.
But I'm not that technically savvy
Yeah.
when it comes to music.
Yeah. But still being able to reproduce is still handy. So I want to talk about the album art for your album, The Fear Breakdown, because
cool.
it looks like a book cover, and I don't know if that was like intentional. Is it intended to look like a book cover?
It initially wasn't. Are you talking about how it's like this sky with the red around it and the font?
Yeah, I imagine the red being like the like red fabric of the book, and like the even like the shape of that F is very like a fairy tale book cover kind of a deal.
Yeah, so it was initially just going to be the sky with the photo. It was a collage that Grady had made on like Picture Edit on his computer, like the most OG software of all time. And then Nick Jones, who played drums in the Wild Reeds, this band I was in before this, he is an incredible graphic designer, and I asked him if he would come up with a font, and then in doing so, he added all the other stuff. And then we realized, oh, it kind of does look like a book, but we weren't going for that. So it's interesting that you picked that up.
Cool. You in the cover, it's you as an angel or just with a halo with wings, maybe not an angel. But the only reference I caught to that in the album is a line from Believer, which says you used to have a halo and you
Ah,
can't get it back. Can you tell me more about why you chose to have that image of yourself?
um, yeah. Wow, you're so attentive. This is cool.
It helps when the album's only like 5 or 6 long.
I know. Yeah, so I love angels in general. And they're having a moment in our society. I mean, cherubs are having a huge moment. But I always have. I've always had photos of angels in my bedroom since I was a kid. And I think I wanted it to be as pieced together as it could be so that, like, we're so used to seeing angels in this, like, beautiful organic landscape, and I wanted it to almost look pixelated and stitched together but somehow angelic. So the halo and the photo of me and the wings, they're all from different corners of the internet, and they were all pieced together on this background of the sky, and that's like how it happened. But I wasn't at all thinking in the moment of depicting myself as an angel, like as if that had anything to do with my moral character. And it wasn't until later that I was like, shit, I really hope people don't think that I think I'm like some perfect angel walking around. Like, that was not at
Yeah,
all it.
yeah. My interpretation was it wasn't saying that you were an angel. Like part of Believer is saying like there's this thing you used to have and you don't feel like you have it, but you want to have it. And I felt like with that information, the cover was kind of a like an aspirational thing of like this is the kind of thing I want to incorporate back into my being. Um,
Totally, yeah. That like kid like magic space you can be in where you feel protected and cared for, and you can almost see and hear things that adults can't, you know?
yeah,
Um, that's something that I've thought about a lot over the last few years. Is I feel like I've like finally stepped into my adulthood, but then I have moments of that where I'm like, I want the magic back. Like, I want to
yeah.
feel the specialness of all of it and the tenderness of all of it. So it definitely had to do with that as well. And then fear of breakdown, the title, it's a like a psychological term that was coined for like somebody who's had some sort of breakdown, but then because of that, constantly is afraid of breaking down again, which that's a really bad explanation. But it was something I learned in therapy where my therapist was like, oh, this is fear of breakdown. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
What does this mean? And she was like, you're afraid of falling apart.
Yeah.
But that means at some point you already have fallen apart. So that's the good news. You wouldn't be
Yeah.
so afraid of this if it hadn't already happened. And so that helped me a lot through the whole year that a lot of those songs came from, because I was like, oh my God, okay, so I wouldn't feel so afraid of this if it hadn't already happened, which means I've already survived it, which means I can survive it again.
Yeah.
So that was the whole fear of breakdown package.
Yeah, one of the things that's funny about press releases is that you wrote out a thing and like sent it out to places and people like copied and pasted it and then like put it on their website without like really digging into it. And I was like, she keeps referencing this, like this is like pretty intense stuff she's referencing and no one's asking a single follow-up question. I'm like, why are these press releases designed this way? So do you feel comfortable giving any background on fear of breakdown, on like you in your press release you continue to write like learning to trust yourself after being gaslit, which begs the question like what was being gaslit? Um yeah, so there's like a lot in there, but I don't want to like pry in unwelcome spaces. So Phil,
No, you're good.
great.
I'm an open book, and I love talking to people about any of this stuff because it just makes everybody else feel more human, I think.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I had like a pretty bizarre childhood. I think earlier when you asked about Waldorf education, like how it helped me become a musician, I was thinking about how it also just saved my life because I grew up with a single mom who was sober and then relapsed in my adolescence. And so I was, quote unquote orphaned, but I was raised by two families at the Waldorf School all through junior high and high school. And so I was able to stay in my tribe. Like, my life didn't change on a day-to-day basis because I had the same teachers and 30 kids I'd had around me since I was 3 years old. But my only parental and familial, I have no siblings, familial figure was gone and on drugs and, you know, nowhere to be found really. So I don't think I was able to internalize at that time, like, how severe that was. Like, I was diagnosed with PTSD and depression, but I look back on high school with, like, really fond memories, and I wasn't on meds or anything, and she got sober when I was, like, a junior in high school, and I ended up living with her for a bit in my 20s, and we have a pretty good relationship now. She's still sober, but it started to show up in my 20s, like, the PTSD aspect and the anxiety. I'd never felt physical anxiety before. I'd never felt like I was actually depressed before. And it all started to, like, come in very tangible ways. And then while all of this is happening, I'm touring for like 8 years straight in a band with 5 people in a very, like, you know, in a van in small hotel rooms, like really small spaces, and grinding our asses off, which was some of, like, the best times of my life.
Right.
But it's very emotionally and physically taxing. And so I was able to really start seeing some of the trauma from my childhood, like, bubble up. And I think my need to feel special or have attention. I'm an only child now. I share the stage with 2 other women, which is amazing because it's giving me this opportunity to figure out how that works. I never had siblings, but it's also like I'm having this internal tantrum that I can't figure out, and it's happening on stage, and no one has any idea that I'm having a freaking panic attack while I'm playing guitar. And just navigating, like, the shit that people say to you after shows, and how my bandmates could brush it off, and how it would linger for days, and trying to be in long-term relationships as a 20-something-year-old, and falling in and out of love on the road. It was like all this stuff led me to, like, this point where, when I was 29, where you have this, for some people, like a Saturn return, and you realize you're about to turn 30, and you're like, what have I done with my life? I'm no one, I'm nothing. So I freaked out and had, like, a full-on depressive episode, and went on antidepressants, which also saved my life. And our band started to crumble a little bit, and I think that's when more things became clearer to me about what I had just been through for the last 8 years, which that's some of the gaslighting reference of, like, you don't always know you're in an abusive situation or an unhealthy one until you start to step back. No one in my band was abusive. That's
right.
But hostile environment. So yeah, it like, I think it all came sort of crashing down, and I was in the midst of getting into a relationship while that was happening, and that's where a lot of those songs came from. Some of them are not all of that new, but I'm definitely in, like, a way better place, and I'm still on antidepressants, and I actually love it, and I feel like I'm very stable, and I've been able to, like, the biggest fear I had was our band completely dissipating and not knowing what I was going to do with my life, and that happened. And it's like, it totally happened, and the last year of my life, I've totally not known what I'm going to do with my life, and I've just been like, wow, you did it. Like, you walked through the thing you were so scared of that it sent you into a tailspin. You just walked through it, and you're alive, and you're okay, and you're totally taken care of by the universe. So that aspect has been, like, really wild.
That is so many things inside of
Sorry.
that. No,
long answer.
No, it's a perfect answer. That is so many things to have to deal with. I mean, there's, like, references to misogyny in it. There's references to, like, dealing with depression and, like learning how to get along with your medication, and so there's just a lot to follow up on with it.
Ask
so, like,
whatever, honestly, like, you know.
Within my brain, I'm just trying to sort a few things at the moment. One of the things you mentioned is things people say at the end of gigs. Do you have any? Can you tell, like, a funny one, and then can you tell, like, a less funny one?
Totally. Oh gosh. Oh my God, a funny one? Oh God, there's been so many funny ones. Like, people have come up to us and been like, "You guys need to show more skin," or like, you know, which like you can imagine as somebody who wears like large sweatshirts that
Yeah.
it's just like, okay, should no.
Yeah.
We've had people tell us, like, I had this group of young Catholic boys who were, I don't know what you'd call it if they're in seminary, but when they're becoming priests, they
Mhm.
came up and asked me about a song where I referenced the Virgin Mary, and they were all like, "Are you Catholic? We want to talk about it." I was like, "No, no, I'm not." But like, wow, you're all like 21 and you're becoming priests, and you came to this
Yeah.
show.
Yeah,
Really
that's
wild
cool.
stuff like that. But then we've also like, I remember one guy like screaming at me that I was not a lead guitar player and that my bandmate was, and I was just like, dude,
Screaming?
like he was wasted and he was just
Okay.
yelling after the show like, "You're not the lead guitar, you're not a lead guitar player, you're a lead guitar," you know.
Oh
It's just
god.
stuff like that where you're like, the whole point of this band is we're trying to be like democratic, and
Yeah.
like when people are not used to seeing women like that in bands, it's like there's the girl, you know, and
Yeah.
people just still could not.
Yeah.
They couldn't. They had to be like, "You're the pretty one, you're the talented one, and you're the this one." Straight up, they'd be like, "You're the." I had this old man once be like, "Your bandmate can really sing, and the other one can
Jeez.
really play, but you have a body." And I was like, "Sir, your children are here." Like, no, just I don't. I'll never approach a band at a show the same way after touring for that. Like, I don't. I don't even say anything. I don't want to say anything because it's
Right.
like, yeah, you're in this like totally vulnerable state, and people just say the weirdest shit
Yeah,
and
that's
the
why
nicest shit.
yeah. Sure, but mostly not.
Yeah.
That's not what sticks with you. Like 9 out of 10 can be nice, and then it's that one that sticks with you. That's people should write nice letters. If you got nice letters, if people just handed you nice notes at the end of shows, would that be nice?
Yes, people have said like beautiful things about getting through abortions and divorces and loss and their family and eating disorders, and I'm like just such, we were so intentional always about folks who wrote, or we tried to respond to every email or anything. This is making us sound like we were like wildly famous. We were not, but but just anytime somebody reached out about that kind of stuff, I mean, it was like that was like the reason I kept doing it, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really special.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're like I want to keep circling around is health for musicians, and I feel like you have a really cool story in that sphere. And in a lot of the interviews you've been doing lately, you talk about really enjoying slow living and being able to like deal with your own stuff in your own time, and like not having to rush the Fear of Breakdown album, and just having a lot of space and time to make it happen. What has COVID and slow living, like what does it look like for you? What has it given you?
Oh, God. I mean, everybody, like, this year is like, you know, we've all like become different people, which is really cool. I'm really, really so lucky to live where I do and have like the most incredible landlords. And I haven't had to worry a whole lot about my safety or like where I'm going to live or stay. So that's been really helpful. And I was able to also get unemployment. So that was really
Nice.
helpful. But also within that, then you kind of end up in this space of like, so I'm like 8 years old and on like forever summer break right now. Like,
Yeah.
there's no live music. I can't tour. What am I without that? I don't know. Let me think about that. Let me sit on that. And I have this whole other huge part of me that loves vintage clothes and essentially just loves digging for old shit and fixing
Yeah.
it up. And selling it is something I do just so that I can keep doing the digging and fixing part.
Right.
So I basically just leaned really hard into that and decided, you know what, I'm just going to try to start putting stuff online and doing flea markets and nurturing that part of me, which often is a lot less stressful than music and like a little bit more of like a relief. And I've always refused to like make it a career. I've always just said it's a hobby because I don't want to like give up this badge of like musician.
Yeah.
But also COVID gave me this whole year of like, but I'm both, and I'm also more than that.
Yeah.
And why does your vocation have to be your identity, have to be the thing that you make money doing? Like, why are they all one thing? The question, what do you do? I don't even know how to answer that anymore. Like, for fun, like in my free time. So that's been really cool. I've been able to just like dabble and then learn like a bunch of new skills in a way that I probably wouldn't have let myself before. Like, ooh, I want to try to, make things out of resin, and I want to learn to knit again. And I have all this time to do it, and spending so much time with my boyfriend and my dog and my grandmother who's, kind of on her last year of life.
Is that who Rosie is?
No,
Okay.
Rosie's one of my best friends, and she lives in Asia, so I never get to see her. But that's really cool that you thought that. Yeah. So it's as much as it's been really hard, and I've had like several freakouts of like, what the hell am I doing with my life? I'm wasting my time. It's been really nice to know that everyone's collectively freaking out.
Yeah.
And figuring out who they are and what they're doing with their life, and it's not just me. So yeah, it's actually been a good year, but it's been hard.
Yeah. I have become a pickleball coach.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and not to brag, I'm pretty good. And
wow.
I get paid by women in Montecito to teach them the game of pickleball. So there are things where I'm like, you know what? I am a musician, but I'm also a pickleball coach right now, and I'm gonna own that.
Hell yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, you gotta appreciate money from where it comes.
Exactly, and like I think all of us too, with like this heightened conversation about capitalism, everyone's just sort of realizing like I can be, quote unquote, be whatever I want to be, like it's I can, I'm a musician and a this and a that and a pickleball coach, and I can say whatever I want to you. Like, it just doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, I feel that way. Are you at all interested in doing a quick song? While
sure.
One of the, I for some in the last week got really into the song Believer, and you keep talking about what you want to be, and that song says some part of what you want to be. So if you're interested, you're more than welcome to. But there's no pressure. You can do whatever you want.
No. I'm gonna just double check that my phone still has a good amount of battery. I haven't played that song in so long, so we're gonna get through this together.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try. And if I mess up, I'll just keep going.
Yeah, perfect.
I wanna be a believer again. Dream colored caution to wind. Give optimism the upper hand. I wanna believe again. Can't stand the TV, it makes me sad. Reality ain't fighting back. But what's for sure, I could just imagine that I could be a believer again. Guess I'm asking for a second chance. My love language is coincidence. Red tail hawk, song break song. Word from Rosie when it's been too long. Seraphim and the cherubim, number 9, the hierophants. I'm scared to death for my request, but nobody's listening. If you could write the story, then how would it end? I told her that's a big ass question. First I'd acquire a wider lens, so I could see a horizon again. I lost the magic and I want it back. She said the mushrooms could help with that, because I used to have a halo. Now I flip the switch but nothing blows. my love language coincidence. A red tail hawk, Tom Petty song, a word from you, it's been too long. There, been in the chair, in the number 9, the higher. I'm scared to death. Put in my requests, but nobody's listening. Woo!
Well done.
Made it through.
You did great.
Thanks.
Zero mistakes. Killed it.
I know. I was surprised muscle memory kicked in.
One of the things I really like about that song is I love slant rhymes in general, and anybody who's willing to put in a slant rhyme to avoid being the most cliche thing on earth, I just double thumbs up to that.
Awesome.
So you say TV makes you sad, reality ain't fighting back, but what's for sure if I can just imagine. You know, these are ways, these are tools for a song, and I appreciated it.
Oh,
I was like, yes, that's a wonderful transition from a to I. Great job.
Thank you. I don't even think about it, but that's really cool that you noticed.
Yeah. Do you have some like real slant rhyme inspirations that you go to, songwriters that you feel like do it well, or who do you feel like you learned it from?
Oh gosh. You know, I can't think of like a song, but I feel like John Prine, I feel like maybe John Prine's just really punny, and that's like what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
But I also feel like there's a Bob Dylan song, and I can't remember which one it is. I just know that at some point in like songwriting journey, I started thinking like, oh yeah, sometimes when you can't find a word to go there, if there's a longer word, you just can cut it in half, right? Like people do that. I've heard that, and then just started doing that. But I can't think of like a song for reference. There's some really great ones out there though.
Yeah. Do you watch reality TV, or do you
Yeah.
you do? Okay. So when you say TV makes you sad and then you reference reality ain't fighting back, it in my mind was like either she watches reality TV or she hates reality TV. One of the two.
No. I do watch reality TV, but like not a whole lot of it. But I think that's so funny that you think that. That totally makes sense. I think what I was thinking in that moment is like, you watch TV to check out of reality. So like, the TV makes me sad, but reality isn't working that hard to be much better.
Oh, okay.
Like, does that make sense? Like, reality's not really duking it out with TV. It kind of sucks too.
Yeah, I thought you were playing with reality TV. Yeah, that's interesting. What reality TV show you watch?
Okay, so I really love Rust Bros. It's a car show.
Nice.
These two just like hysterical dudes in Canada who fix up old cars and make hot rods, but there's just something about them that makes the whole thing amazing. And then my best friend's obsessed with The Bachelorette and The Bachelors, so I started watching that, which is sometimes really problematic. I mean, the whole show is problematic, but we watch it almost like as if we're like on the sidelines of some horrific medieval games, like knowing how wrong it is and still just being like, I can't look away.
The dialogue in The Bachelor is the thing I can't handle. Like, it's the worst writing I've ever heard.
I think that these people are just, I think the producers really manipulate the shit out of everybody.
Yeah.
So they get what they want in terms of like sound bites and stuff.
Yeah.
But it is just, it's horrible.
Yeah. The relationships are just they're just the smallest idea of a relationship you could possibly have. One of the other things I kept finding in my many conversations with musicians is different way. This is a total transition. It's not related to the previous thing. I'm so sorry.
Go for it.
Is different approaches to studio time. And one of the things you reference in your interviews is trying to appease the rock gods by being not too drunk but not too sober. Tell me about your experiences, both like good and bad, in recording and like what you've landed on as a preference.
Well, recording with a band, like when you're in a band, there's a lot of compromise and just sort of everybody's 2 cents, which can like really make some magic happen because it's like pieces of all of you. But it can also be really difficult when it's a song you wrote and you sort of have a dream and you can't fully, like realize it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I learned from being in a band and recording in a band for a long time the things that I did want, and a lot of that was like having to be very direct and give references to things.
Yeah.
And recording vocals is like really vulnerable, and so you have to get into like a space where if you have to tell everyone to leave the room, you can tell everybody to leave the room. You know, like I used to be really embarrassed about that, and then I got to the point where I was like, it's okay, like everybody can leave the room. I don't, So, yeah, it's been like a weird long journey, but I got to this point with Fear of Breakdown where it was the first time that I ever had like creative freedom to just try whatever I wanted or do whatever I wanted. And I was able to just sort of say like, yeah, can we just make that louder and make this quieter? And I actually want to just like try playing a toy piano here if that's okay, and a saxophone here if that's okay. And it ended up being like really, really amazing. And I think that was just the difference of recording without being in a band and doing it all yourself. Yeah. And there's value to both, for sure.
Yeah. When do you ask people to leave the room? Like what's going on that you need that?
I think if I'm doing a vocal that I'm like nervous about or embarrassed of or is like really hard or vulnerable, then in the past, I think when I was in the reads, I asked them to leave the room. And there were some times where I really thought like the way that I heard myself was like so much like more powerful than what would actually come out. So then it would come out and I'd hear it recorded and I would just cry because I'd be like, I know there's power in me and it's not coming out. So that's when I'd be like, give me a shot of whiskey or something. And then if that didn't work after a while, and then it would be like, okay, let's light a bunch of candles and have a friggin' seance. I mean, like I've like tried it all. And in the end, it was way more just like, can you just accept the way your voice is and like it for that instead of just wanting and trying so hard to make it different?
Yeah.
But even in this situation, like I'm in the other room with the door closed, like I'm like in a private space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel uncomfortable when my wife is in the other room and I'm singing, and I mean, I play to lots of people all the time, so it's just a funny thing that I still, especially when it comes to producing anything new, like I can't write in front of anybody who's just watching. Like I can co-write because we're both being undignified, but it's like a very undignifying thing to create anything, really.
Well, you feel very naked too, like. There's something about when somebody hears you alone, like trying to sing by yourself, you just feel like I need to be able to mess up and know that I'm not being judged, you know?
Yeah. You mentioned wanting, like there are certain times that you were trying to make your voice sound different. Like what are some of those like personal voice insecurities that you feel? And like how do you deal with those?
Well, I tend to think that people who have imperfect voices are amazing and incredible and that it works for everyone but me.
Yeah.
You know? Like I'll listen to, Dylan's like the easiest one to point out, but there are a lot of people
that's different though. That's like
I know.
Because you can hold a note.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people out there who have like the Velvet Underground was amazing at it. Just had these sort of imperfect voices, or pitchiness was never it wasn't like a real thing to consider. It was just like, oh well, you know. So I wanted to be that way, but then I would hear myself pitchy or something crackle, and I would freak out and be like, well, we got to do it again. We got to do it again. And part of that was when you're in a band with two other singers and there's harmony involved, you kind of
Right.
do need to have it
Right.
As clean as possible because you're singing with two other people. But I've learned a little more to let that go because a lot of times that would squash the performance. You're just
Mm-hmm.
thinking about the whole time, you're thinking about that, and you're not thinking about, you're not feeling if you're
Right.
thinking. So
Right.
then you think your way out of your feelings, and it's a bummer. And then you hear the recording back, and you're like, this is void of emotion because the whole time I was trying to be technical with my pitchiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You referenced losing yourself in like being in an actual performance and feeling it, and it seems like a thing that you reference a lot and really care about is like being like giving all of yourself into a performance. So do you have any like good out of body experiences, like any of those types of stories of like one night I went to the moon and back and I watched the show from afar?
Yeah. There have been a few experiences where, like, it was playing a show that I'd always wanted to play or playing in a venue that I'd always wanted to play. And because maybe it was in the middle of a tour and I was tired, it was exciting, but it was also like, okay, I just got to get ready for the show. And then I would have a moment where I'd be like, no, no, no. Like, you dreamed of doing this and you've always wanted to do this and you need to stop and really take this moment in. And I thought about that a lot while I was in the reads because a lot of my dreams did come true. But it took a long time. And by then, my dreams had gotten so much bigger that I'd forgotten that this venue that I'm playing now was my dream to play 5 years ago. It was just like, this is another stop on tour. So I had to like sort of consistently remind myself, like, no, 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 this is a huge deal and you need to be present and like really take it in. And I remember like Newport Folk Fest is a great example. I wanted to play there forever and we finally did. And my mom flew out and my godfather was there and my family friends were there. And I couldn't see them, but even though it was 1 p.m. and it was hot as hell, the whole set just kept thinking to myself, like, just take this all in, just take this in, like, give it your all, go as hard as you can, perform as well as you can. And I was really, really present. And I remember looking out and trying to, like, reciprocate and soak up everybody's energy the whole time to just make it the best that I possibly could. So I don't know if I've had any out of body experiences, but there have been a lot of experiences where I've like almost cried, which has been cool. Yeah.
That's really special.
Yeah.
Also going back to studio, I wanted to ask questions about Mark Rains because
Oh yeah.
I know nothing about him, but it seems like you do. What does Mark Rains mean to you?
He's great. He's my neighbor in Echo Park, and I had just heard about him from several friends who'd made albums with him, and they were like, he records to tape. He's really reasonable price-wise, but also like he is just down to do whatever you want to do in terms of trying, and he doesn't need to like overproduce. He's a great engineer. He has amazing gear. And so at that point I was like, all right, I'm sold. It's really close by. He's got all the stuff I want to make the sounds I want. And ended up just loving working with him. And a bunch of my friends are in a band that ended up recording with him as well. So then I got to spend a bunch more time over there. And he's just like such a sweet, gentle, funny person who really just loves music and recording. Like I've had experiences where the person in the studio kind of just can't wait to get out, and I get it. They record all day, every day. It sucks. You want to go home. But he just never feels like that. He's just like, yeah, man, let's try that. Oh, sure, let's try that amp. Let's change this up. So I never felt like I was burdening him. And that was a huge thing, is I was so afraid to ask too many questions and ask too much of anybody, you know?
Yeah. That's awesome. How do you find, I mean, with Mark Rains, it was like you found him through a friend, but like you mentioned other friends having bands. I'm endlessly fascinated with where people find good people. Like there's just like especially as a musician, there are so many people that you have to sift through that aren't going to be your people. Just that it's very clear. So like where are you finding your people mostly, and what like commonalities do you see in them?
I feel like I've had the same people for a long time. Like, I have like a core group of friends, 10-ish friends that have all been close friends for a lot of years, and then I have a lot of peripheral close friends, and a lot of them are in music,
Mm-hmm.
and I did get to know them through playing music or in a situation where I was forced to spend a lot of time with somebody like a tour.
Yeah.
Or maybe if I'd played one show with them, I would have never gotten to know them.
Yeah.
But because I spent 5 weeks with them, they became a lifelong friend. But there's a lot of superficial people in LA as well, and it can be frustrating and daunting, and you can play shows with people multiple times and they still don't remember your name, and you're like, come on, dude, like, we're human, like,
Yeah.
I exist, I have a name and a face, what?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I have had the same best friend since college. You know, I still hang out with, well, as much as you can hang out during COVID, but with the Reeds when I can. And yeah, some of my closest friends are from tour or from pretty much just my 20s in LA. But it is, you're right, it is hard to find good people.
Yeah.
And I guess the common thread between them, that was the other part of your question. It's cool. A lot of them are not in music. Like in this core group of about 10 friends that I have, I mean, it's so, we've got like an actor, an actress, a social worker, a restaurant manager, a teacher. And I think that's my favorite part of it, because it can get really sceney here and like social climby. And I've attempted to like play that game, and I just feel like so sick and empty.
Yeah.
And like none of those people actually care about my well-being. And I think the difference is with my close friends is there's an allowed space. Like if we don't talk for 2 weeks and then it's like, dude, I was busy, dude, me too, it's okay. There's no pressure. You're not constantly worried what they're going to think of you, or like if they're going to be pissed at you about something. There's just a genuine care there.
Yeah.
To the point where you know that they're going to be honest about something as small as, yeah, that outfit looks like shit.
Yeah.
Or something as big as, like, you really hurt my feelings. And that's hard to tell a close friend.
Yeah.
So I think my closest relationships, I, like, really value the people who are, like, most honest with me.
I mean, that's one of the things that I thought I would find more, and I think that's one of the things you like expect as a kid when you see all these musicians. You're like, oh, this must be like their honest thoughts, and they must be like really genuine people. And you're like, oh, but some of them, it's like that's not like a piece of it. And you're like, oh, so it's a really interesting thing that I've learned to suss out of like, okay, there's just, again, there are lots of types of people. Okay. This is the types of questions I ask everybody now, so these questions are more generic. What is like one piece of bad advice that you've been given, like regarding your music career?
Oh God. You have to be on TikTok. That's a huge thing right now, where a lot of musicians I know are like, I am not writing a 30-second song just to get famous with Gen Z kids. More bad advice, music career. Yeah, I mean, sex appeal, that's a huge part of it, is like, you need to be sexier, or you need a hit, you need to write a hit. And I just think about some of my favorite songwriters who have never had a quote-unquote hit, but have favorites that, 5,000 people will sing the words to in a crowd. So, yeah, I would say so. That's some of the worst advice.
What does that what does that mean to write a hit? Like, are they saying like just be on like one of the writing credits for something that like blows up? Or are they saying like you and your band need to like come out with a hit and it needs to go all the way? Okay.
Yeah, that.
Well, I mean, yeah, wouldn't that? I mean, that's like, it's like someone advising you to make $1 billion, being like, you know what you should do? Make $1 billion. It's like, sure, yeah. Do you want me to just Gmail the bank real quick and just?
But it's like, it's almost like, can you formulaically make a hit? And it's like, I don't, like, no, because that goes against my integrity. But of course, in the back of my head, I'm always thinking it'd be amazing if this song blew up.
Right.
But there are some folks, and no offense to them, who do write from a place of, let's get to the chorus in the first 15 seconds.
Yeah.
It's got to have a peak and a this and a that to, like, make sure people get hooked on it like a drug, and, like, then we have our hit. And I will not go that far. I can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, just write songs.
Yeah.
Do you have mentors or books that feel like really steer you in your career or life in general? Do you read?
Oh, I'm not alone. Do you read? A lot, not a lot. In the last couple of years, I've become an anti-reader. Not an anti-reader. Nice. I've become a like article reader. You know,
that counts. That's reading.
It's still reading, but I'm like, my best friend reads like 1 million books a year, and she gives me shit, which she should. I think I've heard a lot of people say this as well, that Patti Smith's book, Just Kids, became like a really formative guide for me in my early 20s, and was like the thing that gave me permission to pursue music in my early 20s, because I thought I had like missed the boat. And seeing that she, like, got her first electric guitar at, like, 23, I was like, oh, my God, I can do it. So I feel like I've, over time, sort of watched her career and her life and been like, wait, she can be a poet if she wants to. She can talk on this song and then sing on this song if she wants to. And I've taken a lot of inspiration from that. And I definitely think that my mom is a huge, like, sounding board for life things for me, as well as my best friend. Like, if there's somebody I'm going to call about a real issue, those are the two people. Also, my therapist, bless her heart, listening to all my shit. But there's definitely, like, some spiritual teachers who I really like. Like, I love everything Eckhart Tolle says. Anytime I'm having, like, an ego tantrum, I feel like I just listen to a little bit of Eckhart, and then I'm like, oh yeah, none of this matters. Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah, can you spell that last name?
Tolle.
Okay.
There's a couple. The Power of Now is probably like his most famous book.
Okay.
But his audio stuff is really nice to listen to because it's really soothing. And yeah, I don't know. I do a lot of, like, I hate saying meditation app, but I use Insight Timer, the app, like almost every day. And that's sort of also my weird little digital spiritual guide.
Yeah. That's not weird though, right? That's pretty mainstream at this point.
It is. I initially was just like, I will never use a meditation app. I will never use my phone to meditate. That doesn't make sense. And now I'm at the point where I use it every day. Yeah.
It's wonderful.
It is. It really is. And there's thousands of free, amazing meditations on there. So get on it if you've never tried it.
I'm using Headspace right now. I've been using that for quite a while. And yeah, I started it 2019 in November, and it was just kind of amazing, like what it just, your own relationship with your breath is such an interesting, especially as a musician, your own relationship with your breath is so important. And particularly like when it comes to feeling emotions in an intense way. Not just like when you're angry and you need to breathe yourself down, but like when you're sad and you need to like really console a friend, like it can pull you out of your own sadness so that you can do the task at hand. And that sort of a skill, I feel like, has been developed through like a year and a half of straight meditation, which is really valuable. We are approaching the hour, so are you interested in doing one last song to play us out?
Do you have any? I guess I can play whatever.
You just play whatever. You can play unreleased. You can play old.
I don't have a whole lot of.
You can play Twinkle Twinkle.
Maybe I'll play New Ways to Die, which is actually a song that was released with the Wild Reeds, but I feel like it's appropriate for the existential questions we've been asking in this podcast.
Awesome. I'm into it.
Great. Let's see. I guess I don't need a pick. Pharmaceutical fantasy under the influence of security. Sun begins to rise now, it burns up the sky, so we try to find new ways to die. Nothing is good enough. Even the soft glow of young love turns gray and flickers when tested by time. So we try to find new ways to die. Some folks believe in heaven. Some of those folks are hell-bent on turning God into an atom bomb, while some choose not to sing along. Yeah, some refuse to sing along. Thank you.
Well done. Well
My
done.
hand was rusty on that one. I could barely play it.
You did great. Sounded great.
Oh, thanks.
Cool. If do you want people to, you mentioned you want people to support you on websites that pay you more money than websites that pay you less money. So would you like to tell people where they should get your songs?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, look, if you're going to listen to music how you listen to it, I'm just so happy that you would listen to it on Spotify or wherever. You can find it on all of the streaming things, but Bandcamp and, SoundCloud and places where you can purchase if you want. That's amazing as well. And a lot of time on Bandcamp Fridays, I'll donate all the proceeds because they give us all the money that we make, which is like, what a concept. So yeah, I'm on all this stuff. I'm even on TikTok, but I don't really have any videos, so I just watch other people's dog videos on there.
Nice. Are you on TikTok as Pet Dress?
I think it is Pet Dress.
Okay.
I got one to watch like metal detecting videos and like dog videos and stuff. I'm like really into metal detecting, and I don't use it. But then the other day I made a video of my dog. So I technically have joined the masses. I have a TikTok video. It has nothing to do with my music.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I also don't care a bunch about TikTok.